and welcome to the News Made Simple podcast with me, Komoto Modise. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for taking your time. This is the platform where we help you make sense of news events. We help you get a sense of what exactly is happening in the country. It's hard to stay in the loop and keep updated, and that's why we are here for you. We're coming to you from the Mkhwanazi studios in Randburg, and as you can see, my lovely studio around me, provided by Mkhwanazi Productions there. All right, so much that we have to cover. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the last couple of weeks in South Africa. Because if we were to look back to before the 6th of July in this country, it's almost as though we were living in a different country. So much has happened in just July alone. And so much continues to happen even in the month of August and September now. We are seeing developments we never imagined would happen in our country. So let's take a journey down what's happened over the last couple of weeks and where are we now. On the 6th of July, the unthinkable, I should say, happened in South Africa, something we've never seen before. An explosive press briefing was held by KZN police boss, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi had already been in the spotlight for a number of reasons. The political killings task team had been making waves for a while in KZN, and we knew that the work that they were doing there had been applauded by many. But what he was about to do was about to go beyond just KZN. He was about to change the trajectory of our news and just the events in this country as a whole. He came out, explosive press briefing, making strong claims and allegations against politicians as well as prominent people in this country, painting a picture of lawlessness, particularly in Gauteng, speaking about a drug syndicate that was being run with politicians and members of the judiciary involved, saying all those people had a part in this drug syndicate. And from there, things just spiraled in this country. Number one, we saw President Cyril Ramaphosa, who was out of the country at the time, coming back with calls from everywhere that he needs to do something and say something. Fortunately, he'd already released a statement, if you remember, and he said he was going to come out and address the country. And he did. He addressed the country and he made strong moves. Maybe not strong enough, because the question was, why did he not suspend the police minister, Senzo Mchunu? He placed him on special leave, which was basically a suspension. People were actually calling for him to be fired. But he suspended him, placed him on suspension or special leave, and he appointed an acting police commissioner in an academic, someone who did have a history in policing, so to speak, or community safety as an MEC many moons ago. But he's now appointed him from academia, where he retired, to be the acting police minister, and that is Professor Vusi Cat Matlala. That appointment came, there was an attempt to challenge the appointment by the MK party and former President Jacob Zuma in the Constitutional Court. That failed. Now that bid is still continuing, but in the High Court. The MK party and Zuma have approached the High Court to challenge this move, the appointment of Vusi Cat Matlala, as well as some decisions that had been made also by the president. But after that had been happening, we then saw a name rise to prominence, someone that had been in the news, mostly, I believe it was News 24 as a news platform that had been covering him, but he wasn't really on the radar of most South Africans. But now if you ask anyone, do you know Vusi Cat Matlala? I can assure you that everyone will say, yes. Thanks to Mkhwanazi, we know Vusi Cat Matlala. He rose to incredible popularity, I should say prominence. He became someone that was on the lips of everyone. He is a known tender boss or a player in the tendering space, being linked to the Tembisa Hospital, tenders in that space. And he had been investigated for a number of contracts that he had secured, but he was already arrested, not for any of those at the time, but he'd been arrested for an attempted hit on his socialite girlfriend, Tebogo Tobejane. Now, with that attempted hit, it involved his wife, Tsakani, who is currently, in this case with him, as well as 3 others. And what we know about this currently is that Vusi Cat Matlala has been trying to gain or to be granted bail. He's been trying to get the Alexandra Magistrates Court to give him bail after he abandoned bail months ago when he initially appeared before court. Now, back to what happened with Mkhwanazi. We then saw him being raided, or his cell being raided at the Kgosi prison where his phone was found. On that cell phone, a number of details were found, and that's being used in his bail application in the Alexandra Magistrates Court. Whatever was found on the phone, the calls that he had made, frantically made. You'll remember that there were questions about him having made several calls to, including, I believe there was Police Minister Begicele from a phone as well as other players. I believe Brown Mkhwanazi had tried to call Vusi Cat Matlala several times after that explosive press briefing. Matlala at the time was at the Kgosi Mampuru prison. That phone was confiscated and has been used by police in the investigation or in their bid for him to be denied bail by the Alexandra Magistrates Court. Now, we also saw links being drawn between Vusi Cat Matlala as well as Begicele, who's the former Minister of Police. How, you may ask? Well, Begicele, it was found and was reported by News 24 that he was at or had been meeting with Vusi Cat Matlala at a luxurious Zimbali mansion. And he met Matlala at that mansion. The owner of that mansion is someone by the name of Morgan Maumela. Morgan Maumela is the nephew of President Cyril Ramaphosa through marriage. Maumela also has links to the Tembisa hospital through tenders. It's been widely reported that he had been scoring or had scored millions in tenders from the Tembisa hospital as well. And so it's clear to see how the links between Matlala and Maumela could be made. However, how Begicele fits in all of this and whether he is an associate, whether he is a friend, whether he is a comrade with them, that's something I think will be explored by the Commission of Inquiry as well. Now, we also saw someone else becoming rather popular, and that is someone by the name of Katiso KT Molefe, a former teacher who moved into business of some sort. And he became rather popular during this time because he had been arrested. Now, at the time that Mkhwanazi came out and started speaking about what happened during that press briefing, KT Molefe was already out on bail for the murder of Armand Swart, a Vereniging engineer, who it was a mistaken hit at the time, and this was over another dodgy tender. Now, Molefe had been arrested, was denied bail in the Vereniging Magistrates Court. His matter was escalated to the High Court in Pretoria, where he was granted bail by the Deputy Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba. Now, few weeks later, because that freedom was very short-lived, few weeks later, he was arrested again. This time, he had been arrested for the links to the murder of DJ Sambodi. Now, I want to backtrack a bit when it comes to Matlala because he's a fascinating character. When we heard that press briefing by Mkhwanazi, he had detailed an arrest that had been done. And there was interference, according to him, by the Hawks. And in that arrest, he claimed that when his men were arresting Molefe, there had been a unit of the Hawks that swooped in. And that unit swooped in and was trying to interfere in that arrest. And that unit, we then later learned, had been deployed by then Hawks boss, Godfrey Lebeya. And Godfrey Lebeya had done this, according to his version, because he'd received a call from someone he calls a whistleblower, who told him that there were people that could potentially have been impersonating the Hawks, effecting an arrest. When they got there, it was clear that the arrest was legit. Now, questions had been asked about Lebeya as well, as to how and who had contacted him and how he's linked to these people. It was later revealed that he was contacted by a character called Malcolm X. And that character came out to confirm that he contacted Libya because he received a call from someone that he calls a brother, alerting him of the arrest of Molefe that was happening. Now, after that arrest, dramatic arrest, it's clear that the claims that had been made by Mkhwanazi about what happened on the arrest were true because they had then been confirmed by this character, Malcolm X, as well as Libya, who says he merely sent his men because he believed that, or he knew that there were people that would impersonate the Hawks from time to time. Now, whether you believe that or not, the point is, he says he's willing to say this at this commission of inquiry. So Libya is one of the people of interest that we're all looking forward to hearing from at the police commission of inquiry. Now, we then move to the second arrest of Katiso KT Molefe, which is merely weeks after he had been released on bail, because he was arrested in around November of 2024. He was denied bail in April, and then he escalated his bid to the High Court, where he was then granted bail on new facts. Now, what we know is that Molefe then was arrested a few weeks after he was granted bail by the High Court. And he tried to apply for bail again. And his reasoning in that bail application was that he was applying because a higher court had already found him to be eligible for bail. His lawyer said it's clear that he won't interfere with the case because he hadn't interfered with the case during his release while, before he was rearrested. They said that a higher court had already found him to be eligible. So, it was really, interesting how a lower court would not find him eligible for bail. But the state brought more facts, including how he'd used a dodgy passport in the past to move or to travel to the UK. It detailed how he'd used that dodgy Lesotho passport under a different name and where he was convicted of drug-related charges in the UK. Now, during this arrest that Molefe was contending with, he was then further charged with another murder, the murder of DJ Vintos. And now he's facing 3 murders. So it's the murder of Armand Swart, DJ Vintos, as well as DJ Somebody. We then know that Molefe had then gone on to continue with his bid for bail, which was denied by the Alexandra Magistrate Court. But there's a link between Molefe and Vusi Cat Matlala, and that is some of the people that he's been charged with, the alleged hitmen, are linked to each other. Molefe and Matlala seem to have been using the same hitmen, allegedly. The question then is, why would the former Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, want to be linked with such characters? Now, during the same time, someone else who incurred a blow is Shadrack Sibiya. He was the head of crime detection. General Sibiya was heading up crime detection during the time that the political killings task team in KZN was ordered to hand over 121 dockets. And that decision was made between Sibiya and the former Minister of Police at the time. This is rather technical. So the former Minister of Police, or I should say the suspended Minister of Police because he hasn't been sacked yet, that is Senzo Mkhunu, had together decided that these dockets be moved from the political killings task team in KZN and taken in to crime detection, or the head office of police in Pretoria. This was detailed in the press briefing by General Mkhwanazi. Once those dockets had then been taken away, Mkhwanazi exposed this during the press briefing, and then a decision had to be made. A few weeks later, the decision was made by General Fani Masemola, who came out. He is the police commissioner in the country. He came out to detail and say essentially that those dockets should be taken back. Now, he says that decision had already been made. The decision had been made, but it had not been announced. It was only announced a few weeks ago that the dockets should be taken back to the political killings task team in KZN. Now, Sibiya tried to challenge his suspension, which he failed to do in the High Court, and he's now been suspended. He too wants his day at the Police Commission of Inquiry, saying he wants to speak about this. He wants to set the record straight, saying that he's not a criminal. And you may remember that interesting quote from the General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who said that a police officer and a criminal cannot be friends, or there cannot be a friendship between a police commissioner and a criminal, making reference to Sibiya. Now, something else that happened during this time was that Parliament established an ad hoc committee. That ad hoc committee is currently desperate to start its work, but they want Mkhwanazi, the general, to be the first witness. And it seems there's this tug now between Mkhwanazi as well as the commission to have him as a first witness. The commission says naturally he should be their witness. Parliament too says he should be the witness who comes forward. It does seem, though, that the way of the commission will be the resounding one, as it is beginning on the 17th of September. Something else that's happened also recently is that the 121 dockets that had been taken to the Pretoria office or to the crime detection office that was being led by General Shadrack Sibiya, they were taken back to KZN. When that decision was made, the president did not like it one bit. President Cyril Ramaphosa, as well as the police minister, had taken issue with this. And their reasoning was that, why are these dockets being taken back while the commission or before the commission sits? Now, the counter view is that the work of the Political Killings Task Team must continue, whether or not the commission sits, and whenever the commission sits, the work of police cannot stop. And it's interesting because since those dockets were taken back to KZN, there have already been arrests in one of them. We've heard 2 arrests that were made in the case linked to a KZN police or a KZN chief. And we know that those arrests are really interesting because they do involve some high-profile people. Now, what we currently know is that there were copies that had been made for the Commission of Inquiry. So even after the president had flagged this and said that he was unhappy with the fact that these dockets were being taken back, copies have been made. And those copies have been made for the Commission of Inquiry or for access for the Commission of Inquiry should they need them, whenever they need them. So the originals are with the KZN Political Killings Task Team, but the copies are being made available to the Commission of Inquiry for its work on the 17th. I suppose now, all eyes are on the commission to see what exactly will happen and how the work of the commission will actually be done. It's expected to be held at the Bridget Mabanda School of Justice, and it begins on the 17th of September 2025. We will be bringing you regular updates on this. We will be keeping you informed regularly on what happens at the commission. Hopefully we can do it on a daily, but we will try. And ensure that not only do you know what happens in the commission, but also that you are informed around what it all means in the greater scheme of things. So, thank you so much for watching my video on this. Remember to comment and share your thoughts on what's happened over the last few weeks. Also, like and subscribe. We are coming to you from the Mtondo Wetusi studios in Randburg. And thank you so much for taking your time watching News Made Simple with me, Mkhwanazi Inquiry.